Yeah, today is another day. Today we'll be looking at plotting quadratic graph. As you all know, plotting quadratic graph is an aftermath effect on knowing how to plot your straight line graph. As we go on with the lesson, we'll quickly do a recap on how to plot a straight line graph. That will give you an idea on how to plot a quadratic graph. Disclaimer, please, I want you to take this as a revision note or a revision resource. Also, I will encourage my learners to have a wider perspective, have do their own due diligence. You can always, there are so many resources out there on YouTube, and there are so many masters book too. You can always make reference to. As mentioned earlier, this is a revision note or a revision resource that will aid you to understanding the basic concepts in maths and the basic concepts in plotting either your straight line graph and your quadratic graph. So let's go on. So let's move on to the next slide. We'll be looking at our lesson name. Our lesson name is to understand how to solve problems involving quadratic graph. Then our lesson objective is hopefully by the end of the session, learners will be able to find solutions to quadratic graph. As usual, this is a target. This is specifically or trying to let my learners know that learning is a two-way process. In as much as the teacher or anyone, the teacher does or makes it possible to compile resources to aid learners' learning journey and progress. The onus is also on the learners to ensure that they create time for personal studies. As the target says that all learners pass both mock and formal assessments by the end of the academic session. How? One, learners will have to take responsibility for their learning. Two, class attendance should be taken seriously. Three, questions should be asked if in doubt. Four, revision of classwork and personal studies should be taken seriously before the end of each day. Yeah, to ask any questions, you can drop it in the comment section of the YouTube page so that I can pick it from there and answer or give you responses or to provide responses to all questions asked. So let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, for the reasons of time, we'll skip this. While this is one of the, online resources that's still useful, there are so many out there because as at the time I prepared the slide, this is what I was using. So I would like to skip this so that we can move to the next slide. Yeah, now this is a quick refresher to see if we can remember on how to plot a straight line graph. As I said, everything that has to do with graph is a function of your table of value. This is a table of value. So what we are doing here is to give you a step-by-step guide on how to complete your table of value. Yes, it's understandable. There are so many learners that will say, "Oh, I know this. I can complete it by heart." Yes, it's fine. But in as much as you are preparing for an exam, maybe your functional skills or probably GCSE, I will encourage you to show your working out. Your steps on how you arrive at answer helps. I've always emphasized on showing of working because you don't know where your saving grace can come from. I've known learners that the pass mark is 34 and they got 33. That means fail. So what does that mean? Every mark is important. One mark is as important as 10 marks. One mark is as important as 520 marks. So I will encourage my learners or my viewers looking at this should please take your time, show your working out, most especially if you are going in for any assessment, whether mock assessment or a formal one, please. So now let's start. You can see this is the question here. For simplicity's sake, I will encourage you to say half. As we know, half is the same thing as 0.5. So that being said, we'll be using 0.5 in place of half. It makes the work a lot easier and understandable. So let's start. Our equation says y is equal to 0.5 x plus 1. So what this simply means is for every values of 0, you replace, for every value of x, you replace with this number, then you solve for y. So let's start. So we'll say the first value of our x is 0. So let's look at this. So that will be 0.5 times 0 plus 1. Yeah, for me, there are so many ways to come about this. I use bracket because it's a lot easier. If you know you are not confident using the bracket, you can always use the sign, the multiplication symbol for times. Remember, maths, there are so many routes, but we are arriving or going to the same destination. You can do whatever you feel is, preferable for whatever you feel you prefer to use, as long as you get the same answer, as long as you arrive at the same destination. That is the whole essence of mathematics. So we can now say 0.5 times 0 will give us 0 plus 1. So 0 point plus 1 will give our y is now 0 plus 1 will be 1. So when our value of x is 0 and the value of y is 1, then we'll take the next one. This is our equation. Y is equal to 0.5 x, sorry, plus 1. So the next one, you need to take this. You take this. So that will become 0.5 bracket open 1 bracket close 1 plus 1. So what this simply means is our value for y is equal to 0.5 times 1. That's 0.5 plus 1. That will be 1.5. So when our x is 1, our y is 1.5. So let's continue. The next one is when our y is equal to 0.5 x plus 1. So that is, as usual, you picked the number 2 here. You pick this value and you place it with your x. So that will be 0.5 bracket 2 plus 1. So that's 0.5 times 2. That will be 1. 1 plus 1 will be 2. So therefore, 0.5 times 2, that's 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So our value here is 2. Then we take the next one when our y is equal to 0.5 x plus 1. So that will be 0.5. As usual, you take this value now. Plus 3, replace x with 3 plus 1. So that will be 0.5 times 3. That will be 1.5. 1.5 plus 1, that will give us 2.5. So this is our 2.5. Yeah, you place it here. Then you pick the value for 4. So this is our equation when y is equal to 0.5 x plus 1. So as usual, you pick 4, replace it with x. So that will be 0.5 times, but I'll be using bracket, 4 bracket close plus 1 here. So that is 0.5 times 4, that's 2. 2 plus 1, 3. So our value for y is 3. So here is 3. Then the next step is you need to plot the graph. You need to plot your graph. So let's come here. So let's go to the graph. So when our x is 0, the value of our y is 1. So when our x is 0, remember, the vertical line, this vertical line is known as your y-axis. And this horizontal line this way is known as the x-axis. So we need to plot this graph now. So when x is 0, y is 1, you tick here. The next thing is when our x is 1, our value of y is 1.5. 1.5 should be somewhere here. The next one is when our x is 2, our y is 2. So we plot it here. The next one is when our x is 3, the value of our y is 2.5. So 2.5 should be somewhere here. Then the last one is when our x is 4, our y is 3. Please, for exam purposes, I've heard some questions that some learners or some viewers are saying, yeah, once you get the point, do I need to plot it? Yes, that is why it's called a graph. That is why it's called a graph. Please and please plot your graph. Plot it. So in this case, you join the points with a straight line. My lines may not be that perfectly straight because I'm using my pen hand with my cursor, with my mouse. So it may not be that perfect. This is the way the graph looks like. And yeah, that reminds me, as a point of correction, don't always, the graph can come either from this way, your graph can go this way, your straight line graph can either go this way or come this way. Please take note of that. Don't always expect a positive one. It's either it goes this way or this way. So whichever way, they are all the functions of your table of value. Once you get your table of value correctly, your graph should be correct along the line, along the process. But remember, this table of value is very important. And if you are going for an exam purposes, whether formal or informal one, informal one, I mean maybe like class assessment, like mock exam, please, I encourage you, show your working out, show your step-by-step process. It helps. You don't know where your saving grace might come from. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is how a typical, this is the answer sheet. This is how a typical correct graph will look like. Though this is just a mere guide, please, I will encourage you, do your own rough work, practice, then you can now refer back to the answer as just a guide. Please, the main essence of this is just to guide us. As you can see, the working out was not shown, but I will encourage you, please show your working out. It helps a lot. Then we'll move on to the next slide. Now, this is the crux of the matter. This is what we call quadratic graphs. Quadratic graphs. In summary, all this is just to let you know that the graphs can come in two ways. It's either it comes in the U shape, the way it is here, or the N shape. It doesn't matter. As mentioned earlier, this is a function of an accurate and correct table of value, which I've shown you on the previous slides. I will show you on how to do that again. Then we'll plot the graph. We'll move on to the next one. This is just the same thing. So let's jump at the practical question. So now this is our practice paper. This is the exercise we'll be looking at. For convenience sake, I'll try and show you how to plot the quadratic graph. So we'll be looking at the first example, and I will encourage my learners or my viewers to practice the other ones. You can use this first one we'll be doing together as the guide, as a stepping stone to do the others. Then at the end of the day, you can now make reference to the answer page. That will help you get along step by step or easily. Remember, I can imagine learning is not an automatic process. It's a step, consistency. It's all about consistency, keep practicing, and it's a step by step process. It's not automatic. Now we look at the next equation. This is the equation. You can see our equation is equal to y is equal to x squared minus 1. As usual, you just need to take the first one has been given to us, has been done for us. So let's pick the second one. So that will be minus 1 squared. So if you like, you can put in a bracket for convenience sake, minus 1. So minus 1 squared is the same thing as saying minus 1 times minus 1. As you know, 1 times 1 is 1, and negative times negative is positive. So negative 1 times negative 1 will give us 1. Positive 1 minus 1, that will be equal to 0. So this will be 0. Then this has been done for us. So let's pick this one. So pick 1. So as usual, you repeat your equation. Your equation is this: x squared minus 1. So you replace this with 1. That'll be 1 squared. 1 squared minus 1. That will be minus 1 squared. This is the same thing as saying 1 times 1, which is 1, minus 1 is equal to 0. So when the value of x is 1 and y is 0, then we look at the last one. As usual, exam purposes, we write out the equation. That's s squared minus 1. Then we pick our last value. Okay, the second one, the next value has been done for us. This is 2, so we are working on the last value, which is 3. So when our x is 3, so that will be 3 squared minus 1. So 3 squared is the same thing as 3 times 3, which is 9. 9 minus 1 will give us 8. So here, the value when x is 3, our y value is 8. Then as usual, we'll come to the graph. This is the vertical line and also known as the y-axis, and this is the horizontal line, also known as the x-axis. So let's plot. We are working with our table of value. We'll call this table of value. So we'll work with this. So the first one says when our x is minus 2, our y is 3, we plot here, we mark here. So when our x is minus 1, our y is 0, so it's on this, just mark it. The next one says when our x is 0 and y is minus 1, this point, you mark it. Then the next value says when our x is 1 and y is 0. So we mark here. Next value is when our x is 2 and y is 3. Steric here. And when our s is 3 and y is when our x is 2 and y is 3, and when our x is 3 and y is 8. Mark here. So just plot. It may not be perfect, but at least it'll be a rough sketch. So this will give you something like the U shape. Can see the way it is. So for the sake of time, as mentioned earlier, this is just for revision purposes. I will encourage my learners or my viewers to use this as a guide to help them complete this other two exercises. With this will help you to know if actually you are making progress And as usual, you can make reference to the answer page, which is this. This will give you how the answers are. Remember, these are already made answers. That is the essence of making this clip, so as to give you a step-by-step guide on how to complete yours. Thank you. Until we meet again, keep practicing, keep asking questions, keep practicing, and keep practicing to get better. Thank you. Until we meet again. This is coming from Valentine.